Okay, so I don't know if you guys remember last month when I talked about how I was excited about Nikayla coming to visit, because we were going to try to incorporate something new into our mother-daughter regimen, I guess you can call it. We already do something called Fat Girl Friday when we're together. You know, that's just getting a bunch of junk food or sitting in front of the TV
and
pigging out pretty much, right. But it's quality time for us, and we've been doing that since Ohio.
Yeah, so 2011
preteen. Yeah. But I reached out to her last month and said, hey, do you want to start reading a book together, do a mommy and daughter book club, since we both like to read? Of course she said yes. So and actually I want to say it was actually probably April that I asked her. So I told her, well, I'll let you pick the first book that we'll read, and she chose
Becoming by Mrs. Obama, Michelle Obama. Because my parents last year for Christmas, 2019, got me this journal, Becoming a guided journal for discovering your voice by Michelle Obama. And I was like, well, now that I got this, I gotta read the book. So it has been on my list for a while. And when she came to me about the book club or reading, I was like, yeah, I know exactly what book I want to choose. And that's how that started.
Yep. So we decided to choose. So this month it's Becoming. We have a month to finish the book. So we're almost done. We're both on chapter 15 now.
Yes.
We'll be done by the end of the month.
Yeah.
Next month we're reading Women of Brewster Place. I read that when I was in high school, or actually probably middle school. And I told Nikayla, well, I know what we're reading for July. So
I'm looking forward to that book.
So we're reading Women of Brewster Place next month. If anyone wants to join us
feel free to
on this journey, feel free to, and we'll just kind of set up, sometime during a month, just to discuss, different aspects of the book or what we took away from the book. And we're not setting how many chapters you have to read, or just try to finish the book by the end of the month is the goal. So if you're an avid reader, you'll probably finish the book in 3 days. If you're not and you need that month to finish it, do it. If you're a working individual, you're probably going to need a month just trying to balance work and extracurricular activities.
Right.
So
that's what we're doing too.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into it.
Okie dokie.
So I'll just ask some of the questions from the journal. I'll ask one and then you can ask one.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Where did your story take a sudden turn?
I believe for me, my story took a sudden turn when we lost Anisha.
Mm-hmm.
I would say is one. And then having sickle cell in Alabama. I mean, I was born with sickle cell, obviously. But one of my crises in Alabama being transferred, that night I was transferred to 3 different hospitals. And then another night when I was put on a ventilator. I think those 3 times is when my life took a sudden turn. Also, I didn't think about this till now. When I started college and being in and out the hospital for the last 2.5 years, dealing with a whole new type of pain in my legs and turning 20. So I'm like, my doctor was like, yeah, when you hit your 20s, your sickle cell just
decides to act a fool.
Yep. So I think those 4 times is when life suddenly just switched up on me like a light switch.
Okay. I would definitely say for me as well, Denisha passing, that's definitely when life took a sudden turn, because now not only did I, but we all had to adjust without that 4th family member.
Right.
We were kind of a complete set, so now we had to try to adjust and pick up the pieces and still function as a complete family with just the 3 of us. I think that was the huge one. You having sickle cell. I will say this: having children. Not necessarily that was a bad thing, but just having children, you all just kind of came in like a whirlwind. That's what happens when you have sex.
Children are a force.
Unprotected sex. I'll say that. Anyway, but but yeah, having children, learning how to take care of this little person that demands so much of your time, and then also learning how to be a wife, because when we got married, I was pregnant with you. So those 2 times, and then of course that last time you were on the ventilator and you were more concerned about your homework, your schoolwork, than you're about to be put on a ventilator. So yeah, I would say those 3 times.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'll ask one. Describe your proudest moment in the fullest detail possible.
You graduated high school with all the challenges that you've had presented to you in your life. You having sickle cell, you losing your best friend, in and out the hospital. I would say that was definitely a proud moment. Seeing you walk across the stage, and going off to college and being able to, function. But of course, you've been prepared for that moment since you were little, because I always told you getting out my house at 18. I don't care where you go, but you're getting up out of here. So you were prepared for that moment.
Yeah.
You were prepared for that moment. But yeah, definitely you walking across that stage and, going to college. That was definitely a proud moment. Yeah, probably one of the proudest moments, because you attack every area of your life, with such gusto, and like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get it done. So, yeah, that was, proud moment. We're going to stop talking about that now. What about you?
I would say, I don't know. I feel like walking across the graduation stage was like, okay, another thing down, let's go on to the next. And I just feel like that's what it's been, because I just like, with having to keep up with schoolwork from a young age, it's like, okay, I got this done, on to the next. And people be like, you did that? Yeah, I mean, there's no words for it.
Such is life.
Yeah, but I think something I'm excited and proud that I'm starting is a company to help people share their stories and what it means to share your story, and that it's okay to share your story. It's part of your journey. Don't be ashamed to share it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something I'm proud to start.
True that. So, how do you think this book, Michelle Obama's book, is relevant to right now, to today? What?
With everything going on today, and since it's an autobiography and she starts off from her life at a young age, and when Martin Luther King was alive to now, I think you can see the parallels between that, when she is talking about that, to today.
Mm-hmm.
And how racism is still alive and well, and people are ignorant to something they don't want to admit that happened,
Mm-hmm.
or is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's relevant to then, when she was growing up, and it's relative today.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'll just say from right here, I have highlighted Martin Luther King Jr. had been killed standing on a balcony in Memphis. setting off riots across the country, including in Chicago. The 1968 Democratic National Convention turned bloody as police went after Vietnam War protesters with batons and tear gas in Grant Park, about 9 miles north of where we lived. White families, meanwhile, were moving out of the city in droves, lured by the suburbs, the promise of better schools, more space, and probable more whiteness too. So yeah, I would definitely say that, you know, throughout the whole book is relative to today and yesteryear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's I mean, if you can't see that just from reading, I mean, when I just this first chapter, I'm like, exactly,
Right.
you know, like that's what's going on right now. Unbelievable. We're still doing this crap. So yeah, that this book is so relative, and even though we're only on chapter 15, I related to just about everything she's talked about in the book. Being a mother, being a wife, balancing career and home, or trying to balance career and home. And I don't think you ever find a real balance between career and home. You manage the best way you can.
Right.
So yeah, this book is just,
It's really good. It's phenomenal.
yeah.
I think in that chapter 1, on page 7, one quote that really hit me was, "Everyone on earth, they tell us, was carrying around an unseen history, and that alone deserves some tolerance." And it just speaks to me how when you're listening to someone share their story deserves some respect, because you didn't live their life.
Right.
So respect their story, and if you have questions and if they're okay with answering them, then ask away. Like when people find out I have sickle cell and they get hesitant about asking questions, I always say, either while I'm talking or when I'm about to share something, I say, you're welcome to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with it. It's been part of my life. More education, I got you.
Right.
So people's stories deserve some respect, and I think that has been lost somewhat because people just are quick to judge and jump to conclusions.
Mm-hmm. They've already gathered in their mind
Right.
facts or what they think the facts are, instead of being open
Right.
to hearing the actual facts, at least your story, because they don't know your story.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I love the part in the book where she's talking about circumstances that different kids grew up in, and how, you know, people say, then you hear it on today too, oh, they're just a bad seed, or they're a bad kid, or they'll never amount to anything, you know. But here, I don't know what chapter this is, and I got the book, but I think it's 4, where she says they aren't bad kids, they're just trying to survive bad circumstances. And that's so true, just regarding, it's chapter 2, where she says that.
Oh yeah.
That's just so true, and it's relevant across the board. Adults, our elders, I mean, we're all just doing the best that we can.
Right.
But when you automatically deem a child as bad without knowing the backstory, they could have come or could be living in a home where they're being molested.
Right.
Or they're being beaten. So what other way to get attention, because they don't know any other way to get attention other than to behave in a less than mannerable way, the best way I can describe it. So yeah, they're just trying to survive bad circumstances, or what their home life is, or what life has presented them, like we all are. So, you know, why not go up along come up along someone and say, hey, you know, what can I help you with? And I know I'm guilty of it myself, just be like, you know,
Right.
because I just don't like people. But you know.
Yeah, we all done it.
But I mean, it's nothing wrong with, like I used to tell you, you never know what your smile could do for someone.
Right.
You know, so just smile at somebody. That might be something that they just needed.
Right.
You know, that might just be something that give them that extra push to carry on for the day.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I think this book is so far just an awesome read, and I would recommend it for anyone.
So, it's a good book. I believe this is in chapter 3. So the context of this is that her dad is he goes to different areas in the neighborhoods and listens to people's take on what they think needs to be done politically. So the quote says, "To my dismay, he never rushed anyone along. Time, as far as my father was concerned, was a gift you gave to other people." And I was like, well then, if you think about it, even with relationship, it takes time to grow a relationship. You have to be willing to put in that time to sit down and go see that person. Even when friendship takes time, especially someone that's hesitant about opening up. That time is something you give to them and they give back to you. Just being respectful in general and listening.
I like what she talks about in chapter 4 about failure being something that you perceive yourself doing before you've even attempted to step out on the ledge to take that leap of faith to achieve your dreams. But it says failure is a feeling long before it becomes an actual result, is how she puts it. It's vulnerability that breeds with self-doubt and then is escalated, often deliberately by fear. So, I mean, I could say that I've felt that way about many things in my life.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I can say I felt that way about many things in my life. But I had to find a way to shake it off and be like, okay, I can do this. Stop.
Right.
I had to change my attitude. I had to change my attitude about it and just do it, you know, like Nike said.
Just do it.
Just do it. So, yeah, that struck a chord. Yeah, I like too how she talks about how her parents didn't necessarily give them rules. They were more or less guidelines because they were raising adults. And with that being said, they didn't let Michelle Obama's parents didn't let her and her brother run amok.
Right.
But they allowed them to have a voice. You know, they trusted that their parentship was good.
Yeah.
It was, so they allowed them to make decisions. So I think in this book, she said her brother, a young lady had called her brother and told her brother that her parents wasn't going to be home. And y'all know what that means. And invited him over. Her brother had, lied to her mom about the whole situation. Like, he was, in his head, he knew he was wrong and he shouldn't go over there. But eventually, long story short, he told his mom the truth, like, okay, her parents not gonna be home, but I'm not gonna do that. That's just not wrong. So that's just wrong. I can't do that. So her mom allowed them to learn from their decisions or bad decisions, I guess you can say. And he didn't go over there, but just the fact that it was already instilled in him and instilled in them that, hey, this is your decision. Think about the consequences of this decision and make the appropriate
Right.
choose wisely. And he chose wisely. So they were raising adults. And you hear a lot of people say, well, you know, you can't raise a man, or you can't raise, you know, a grown person or whatever. But in essence, when you think about it, we are raising our children to be adults. We want them to be productive members of society, right? So in a sense, you are raising an adult. You have to, it's about attitude, I guess. So that's what I kind of took away from that. You are raising an adult, because eventually these children are going to be adults. So if you don't give them the proper guidelines to learn to make decisions for themselves, then, you know, the streets will raise them.
I was going to say, when I started becoming older, you would say the saying, it was like, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you say, my role as a parent has changed.
Yep.
And then you continue with something else next
I would say I'm no longer the manager of your life. You are. You have to, I'm the advisor now.
Yeah, that's what it is. But in chapter 5, towards the end of it, this one really hit me. She said, I wasn't going to let one person's opinion dislodge everything I thought I knew about myself. Instead, I switched my method without changing my goal. And she was getting ready to graduate, and she wanted to go to Princeton. And the Princeton advisor was like, well, I don't think you're Princeton material. So she was like, well, just because you say that doesn't mean I'm not. So instead of switching her goal, she switched her method of how.
Okay.
She's like, I'm not going to go through an advisor. I'm going to just write the letter and not take her opinion for what it is, because her opinion is not right. People have opinions, so that means it's right.
Right.
So she's
An
like,
opinion is like a butthole. Everybody got one.
everyone got one.
Yep.
So that really struck me. Just because something doesn't work one way doesn't mean it won't work at all.
Right. Well, that's just like when you meet people, someone will say, oh, like I could tell you, oh, well, such and such, they're not a good person, or, you know, but that's based on my experience with them.
Right.
Your experience may be totally different with them.
Right.
I've told you that before too, so, you know, yeah, that's kind of what that reminds me of.
Then she went on to say, what I've learned is this. All of them have had doubters. Some continue to have roaring stadium-sized collections of critics and naysayers who will shout, I told you so, at every little misstep or mistake. The noise doesn't go away, but the most successful people I know have figured how to live with it, to lean on the people who believe in them, and to push onward with their goals.
Yeah. That right there just says, to me, a good support system.
Right.
So I'll say when we lived in Washington, being you and Denisha are 2 and 4, but met a group of women that became my support system. We became each other's support system. You know, when your dad was deployed, or Dina's husband was deployed, or Tracy's husband was deployed, or Carla's husband, or Lynn, I mean, we all just kind of clinged to each other, and we were each other's support system. We would have our girls' nights and, you know, sit and unleash or relax, you know. So having a good support system is very important, you know, because those are the people that is going to keep you grounded. And when you do have your crowd of naysayers, they'll be in the background talking about, so who you gonna listen to?
Right.
They don't know you like we know you. You know, they don't know your story like we know your story.
Right.
So why would you listen to who are they?
Right.
You know, so that's, hey Tracy, Carla, Dina, Lynn. So yeah.
I just think those 2 pages right there are just phenomenal.
So I'm gonna say this at the very end, this last sentence here in chapter 5. It would have done nothing for either of us. And she's just referring to going back to show that counselor, like, bam, I did it, heifer.
Right.
And in the end, I hadn't needed to show her anything. I was only showing myself.
Right.
I think just to sum that bit up is you're your own competition.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have anything to prove to anyone except yourself.
You're your harshest critic.
Yep, and I always tell you that too. Your dad always tell you don't have anything to prove to anyone except yourself. So if you feel like you're in competition with, you know, this person over here, they're not even worried about you.
Right.
They have no concerns or thoughts about you, and you're fretting over that for nothing.
Right.
So your focus your focus has been I don't want to say damaged, but you know, it's taking a hit because now you're like, oh my God, they're getting A's and B's, or they're getting this 6-figure job, and oh my God, I gotta do better. I gotta be better than them. Why? You know, who are you?
Right.
Are you?
Who are you competing with?
Who you're trying to convince?
Right.
So yeah. In I think this is chapter 6.
Yeah. In the 70s is chapter 6.
So.
Trying to summarize it?
Well. So I'll just read it. It says, this is doable, of course. Minority and underprivileged students rise to the challenge all the time. But it takes energy. It takes energy to be the only black person in a lecture hall or one of a few non-white people trying out for a play or joining an intramural team. It requires effort, an extra level of confidence to speak in those settings and own your presence in the room. So I don't know how many times I've been one of maybe a handful of minorities in a room, or the only black in the room. And again, I already don't like people, y'all. Y'all know that I don't like people. So to be the only one, the onlyest, you know, that's tiring.
Yeah.
It's tiring. But once I get to talking, you know, and people just kind of look at you, it's kind of uncomfortable because you're like, why are y'all looking at me like I got 2 heads, like I have 2 heads?
Right.
Are y'all receiving what I'm saying, or is it just going in one ear out the other, and I'm just speaking, you know, just to hear myself talk?
Right.
So that can be very, I'll just say I've been in more uncomfortable positions than I would like to have been.
That next paragraph after that, it says, my 2 white roommates in Pine Hall were both perfectly nice, and I wasn't around the dorm enough to strike up any sort of deep friendship. I didn't, in fact, have many white friends at all. In retrospect, I realized it was my fault as much as anyone's. I was cautious. I stuck to what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to put into words what sometimes you pick up in the ether. The quiet, cruel nuances of not belonging. Subtle cues that tell you not to risk anything, to find your people, and just stay put. Mm-hmm. And I wrote next to that, comfortable, play it safe. She didn't take a risk, and she realized it was her fault as well as anyone else's in that room. Mm-hmm. And we just get comfortable where we're at in life. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you know you need to take a risk and make that nudge or push. Like if you have an idea for something, like you want to write a book, and you're like, well, I'm just comfortable where I'm at in life. Mm-hmm. But you don't know where that risk can lead you. How do you think businesses that are big out there got to where they're at? They had to take a risk. They probably had a lot of naysayers and stuff like that. but that doesn't mean those people's opinions are right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think that this chapter, just her experience at Princeton, just was the experience for a lot of us. I guess a lot of minorities. You know, you stick with what you know because it's what you know. You know, and to step out of your box to get to know a different race or different group of people. You know, I don't think your dad has ever met a stranger. See, that's why we click, because I don't like people. I say that, but then I'm a nurse. You know, so the two doesn't go together, right?
Doesn't, no.
But that's where your dad and I, we're different. Your dad will talk to anybody. He will talk to a doorknob. Okay? He will talk to anybody, and I'll just be sitting there sizing them up like, okay, what's your angle here? You know? Right. I proceed with caution. I'll sit up here, you know, like, automatically I don't like you. You trying to come into my space and you're trying to get to know, I don't like you. You know, because that's me. I'm like, yeah.
And I inherited Dad's talkness.
You did. You did. But you got some things from me too, which just totally, oh, she is my kid.
I'm a nice mixture and balance.
Yeah, we can say that. But yeah, so that's what that, I'm like, oh my, yeah, we just gonna.
Also with her time at Princeton, I feel like she also learned a lot about herself. She learned that, like, in summary, she had a roommate that was messy, and she was like, she didn't like it.
Right.
But she also realized that, she said here that not everyone needs to have their file folders labeled and alphabetized, or even have to have files at all. Mm-hmm. So for her, she puts stuff into a folder in her head, and it's very organized in there. Mm-hmm. And then some people just don't do that.
Let me summarize that. There are simply other ways of being.
Yeah.
Her way worked for her, but that just wasn't Suzanne's way.
Right.
And that wasn't President Obama's way either.
Nope.
Apparently, that's not his way. So Suzanne was preparing
her
Michelle Obama for her future husband.
I didn't see the connection till now. Yeah, definitely.
Because I laughed when they got to the part, and it's funny because as you get further along in the book,